Hello and welcome to This is Private Practice. Oh, at the end of my working day, it's just gone half of midday here in beautiful New South Wales, Australia, and I am done. But then I will acknowledge that I have been here talking into this screen since 8 o'clock this morning, so that's 4.5 hours. So no wonder I am tired. And now you may see some interesting things happen where my brain decides to not work anymore. We call it brain fog, but it's where the thoughts up here struggle to come out of the mouth here, and it looks like I have stopped speaking, or you may think that my internet has been interrupted. I'm just conscious that my fatigue levels are starting to rise, and therefore my cognitive capacity is starting to decrease. So why do I share this with you today? Well, I want to help you think through some more ways that we need to reorient ourselves so that we can do more with the precious energy that we have. It's interesting with the group coaching that I've done today, the one-on-one coaching I've done today, the 2 interviews I've done today, this topic of not enough time has come up. And I'm starting to get curious about the whole not enough time thing, because most of us are still working from home and we've got a lot more time without commute. We've got a lot more time without so many clients. We've got a lot more time. So it's not a time issue. And then it was, I don't feel productive. I'm distracted and I'm lacking in focus. I'm like, so I got curious about that. And I'm like, okay, so what's changed for you? And when did you feel more focused and more productive? And it's very interesting that the golden age of before COVID has crept into the conversation a couple of times. And what I've identified there is that our work and non-work boundaries have become really blurred, especially for those of us who are working from home. And if you're working with home and you've got children at home or spouses at home or other adults in the home and you're not used to all of that. So we've had all of this disruption and interruption, yet for some reason we think that our old paradigms of clock watching and smart goals and the pressure to getting things done in specific time frames needs to be the same. So the challenge I want to put before us today is I don't think, and I've talked about this before, I don't think now is the time for us to be managing, pushing through time frames that we've set ourselves. I think that that's actually unhealthy, and I think it's incredibly unhelpful. I don't want us as health professionals burning out on our own set and rigid ways around, I was going to have this project finished by the end of June and it hasn't even started yet. Because that level of disappointment will breed resentment, it will breed shame, it will help us feel like a failure, and that's the sort of stuff that is going to stop us from being present when our clients really need us to turn up and listen to them. So I would like to propose that now is the age of managing your energy, not your time. Now, this is going to require quite a lot of self-awareness from us, because we have all become very used to fatigue, of pushing through, of living in a depleted state, of not listening to our bodies and our minds and our emotions. No shame, no blame. I am just letting you know what is. I am the queen of this. You are learning from me. So in being self-aware, we need to start asking some self-awareness questions. Like, how do you feel when you're in your flow? How do you feel in your body when everything's effortless? What does that feel like for you? Is there a lightness to you? Is there clenching in your stomach? I'm thinking there's not. But what does that feel like for you in your physiology? And then what starts to happen when fatigue sets in? Now, this is going to be really interesting, because most of us don't realize that we've got to deal with physical fatigue, cognitive fatigue, and emotional fatigue. And I'll deal with that another day. But we're very, very quick to jump to physical fatigue. We can all talk about physical fatigue. But we don't necessarily understand that our level of distractibility comes from cognitive fatigue and emotional fatigue, or our inability to follow through on something from start to finish is a symptom of cognitive fatigue or emotional fatigue, or our I can't talk to one more person about this thing is a symptom of our emotional fatigue. So what starts to happen when fatigue starts to set in for you? So for me, I know my brain stops working. I find it hard to form thoughts. I find it hard to get the thoughts from here out of my mouth, which is why I'm using notes a lot more these days. I find it hard to task switch. I crap at task switching these days, which is probably great for my productivity. I need to be very focused about my agenda for what I'm doing right now. Everything has become incredibly intentional. I've only got about 16 hours of productive work in me a week at the moment, and I have to turn up going, what are the things that only I can do? And of those things, what is the most important thing for me to do now? And I don't work an 8-hour day because I know that by this time of the day, I am starting to feel really tired. My throat, my voice will get scratchy, my eyes will get scratchy. I will start to feel really tearful, which is unusual for me. Usually I go to getting angry and irritable, but that's another fatigue sign for me. I don't want to interact with people. I find that I turn off my email, not because I'm scared of the emails coming in, it's because I just don't want to have conversations with people, because that's how conversations tend to be happening for me right now. So these are some of the ways that fatigue turns up for me. Now you might think, yes, I can feel tired in my body, but tired in my body doesn't necessarily stop me from capacity to work. So the physical fatigue component, yes, it can be problematic, but for me, I need to be watching those emotional fatigue signs and those cognitive fatigue signs. So if we're going to be health professionals, responsible health professionals right now who have endurance to stay the course, not only through the COVID pandemic, but from the growing mental health pandemic, and as I'm going to be talking about on and on, the crisis that is chronic health conditions and chronic illnesses, we need to become increasingly aware of how our energy turns up when it's depleted, and how to almost regulate that for ourselves without always going for sugar and caffeine and alcohol and sleeping tablets. And I'm not saying any of this to shame anybody again, but waking up with caffeine, going to bed with wine, it's great for a season, but it's not sustainable for us in the long term. So if we're going to do this, we need to recognize when we're the most energized. Not how we got there, but when. Because there will be periods of time in the day when you have more energy than others. So I know from now until about 6:30 this evening, I'm wrecked. I'm not good. I will be sleeping deeply. There's no napping happening. I will be sleeping deeply. From about 6 o'clock in the morning till about 11 o'clock in the morning, I'm great. I'm really good. That is my peak time. It's not always been like that, but that's when I have the most energy and when I feel the most refreshed. Not every day. There are some days I can wake up and go, oh my God, what just happened in my sleep? So then after we've recognized the times in the day where we've got some energy, like when we feel more energized, then we can start asking questions around what depletes our energy. So I know that depletion of energy is anything that requires minutia of details. I can do it for a little while, but I now really struggle with that. I struggle with things that require a lot of accuracy. Thank you to all the people who no longer challenge my spelling and typos, because I just don't see them. And I don't really want to waste the precious energy I have on fixing those things. So what depletes our energy? Complaints deplete our energy. Ineffective communication often depletes our energy. Scrolling through Facebook mindlessly depletes our energy. But what adds to our sense of energy? I had a wonderful conversation with Debbie Simmons, who did an episode of This is Private Practice a couple of weeks ago. She's a part of my You, the Entrepreneurial Clinician community. And last week when I was running some training, I talked about at the moment how exercise has been interrupted for a lot of us, because we used to go out to exercise. We had quite formal, structured exercise programs or processes in place. And since we've been in self-isolation, we've really reduced our exercise because we're waiting for things to open up again. And I challenged her to get out of a chair for 10 minutes after every session and walk and go do something, even if it's just cleaning a shelf or filing something, but get up and walk around. And I talk about this a lot. And she said to me today that it has really made a massive difference to her energy levels. It's allowing her some sustainability to get through the day. They're the sorts of hacks hacks and things I want to be able to share with you and help impart as necessary for us to be able to have endurance. Hey, Carol. Yes, I know I am preaching. I know you agree with all of this. You've been living this for a long time now. Cortisol can deplete our energy, but I'm not going to suggest at the moment that we stop cortisol from happening, because who knows what we're going to wake up to at the moment. But I think it's important to understand that if we are anxious or more anxious or become frightened, then there's going to be biochemistry running around our bodies that's going to deplete our energy. It's important to remember that really big trains still Australia's still working, because there goes our coal. It's important to remember that you have a finite amount of energy every day, that we all need sleep, we all need good nutrition, we all need water, we all need they're the basic building blocks of any wellness program, and it kind of scares me that we're still needing to preach that message. But for you to be able to set good priorities or intentional priorities, for you to be able to know what's important to do right now, you've got to take care of some of this energy stuff. And I'm not talking about, anyway, where your energy turns up and how your energy leaves you, and what you can actually do to refill some of that tank for yourself during the day. So I'm going to be talking about this more as my training develops and I get Zoom sorted out for myself. But my questions for you today is, what gets in the way of you being able to map or process or use your energy in a way that works for you? What gets in the way? So some of the things I'm expecting us to say to that is, well, I get scared. What happens if I end up with no more work? That whole scarcity mindset. Because I can assure you that if scarcity turns up for you around money, scarcity is going to turn up for you around time, and it's going to turn up for you around energy. I know this with every fiber of my being. It's not just around money. So how is it turning up for you? And what gets in the way of you being able to go, I'm going to do the things that require the most energy at this time of the day, and I'm going to get serious about mapping my energy and understanding when my body is saying I am tired. And I get it, because it doesn't mean that I am tired, I do nothing. That is not the solution here. All I want to do is raise awareness to the fact that we are tired as health professionals right now, but our work needs to be ongoing. And what are we going to be able to do to be sustainable? And one of those things is starting to measure our energy rather than measuring our time. Word finding difficulties have finally kicked in. Got myself about 13 minutes of discussion there. Looking forward to connecting with you again tomorrow. But until then, go be your awesome self.